there's an awful lot of talk these days and these weeks about the Iranian nuclear threat against Israel and against the West, but more specifically, what Israel is planning to do to confront the Iranian nuclear threat. We see in papers across the United States unnamed senior sources in the Pentagon declaring that Israel may attack Iran in the coming months before the end of the Bush administration. But I think it's extremely important to understand the strategic context to the entire discussion. And that means, simply put, that the question is not what immediate or near-term or medium-term threat Iran poses for Israel, but in fact, how is Israel going to protect itself against the war that Iran has declared on Israel now for many years? We saw very clearly in the Second Lebanon War, which really should be called, from Iran's point of view, the first Iranian-American war fought over Israel's bow, because Iran looks at Israel as an extension of Washington, D.C., what they call the arrogant powers. What we saw very clearly in that war were Iranian Revolutionary Guard forces, the Quds forces, sent on the direct instruction of Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei to fight alongside and to train and advise the Hezbollah in their attacks, 4,000 rocket attacks against Israel. We also see in the south Iranian-backed and trained and armed and financed Hamas, even though Hamas is Sunni and of course the Iranian regime is Shia. You see the same type of proxy relationship with Hamas from the south. So the Qassam rockets and the Katyusha Grad rockets that are hitting Ashkelon and hitting Sderot are sourced in Iran. Also training, provision, financing, and also other forms of assistance on the ground to Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad in Gaza and in the West Bank, as well as the Al-Aqsa Martyrs Brigade, which is a Fatah offshoot in the West Bank, primarily a little bit in Gaza. So we see that from the point of view of Iran, Iran has declared war on Israel a long time ago. I don't have to say, historically, of course, 1992 was the Iranian-backed major terror attack against the Israeli embassy in Buenos Aires. In 1994, it was the attack against the Amia Jewish Daycare Center in Argentina. These were, of course, attacks, strategic attacks that were ordered at the highest levels of the Iranian government. That is clearly what the Attorney General of Argentina has established publicly in commission. But what we see today is just a continuation of the war that former President Rafsanjani had declared on Israel. And clearly, since Mahmoud Ahmadinejad was elected president in mid-2005, the Iranian regime's war against Israel has intensified. So this is an important message to send to the international community that A, Iran has declared war and is carrying out war, is fighting a war against Israel now for a number of years, and we see the results of those on Israel's northern border, southern border, in Judea and Samaria, as well as throughout the region, because it's not just Israel that Iran is fighting, but in fact it's Israel as a function of its alliance with the United States, but it's also Iran that's subverting, as you can see from these arrows, almost every single country in the region. Each of these arrows represents another Iranian, mostly Shiite proxy or surrogate or ally, and it extends, Iran's proxy groups extends to the Sefah al-Muhammad group in Afghanistan and Pakistan, to warlords, to Taliban warlords in Afghanistan, to backing for the Turkish Hezbollah in Turkey, to backing for the Imam Mahdi army in Iraq and the Skiri Shiite army in Iraq, as well as the Hezbollah in Lebanon, as well as Syria as a major ally, as well as, of course, these arrows extending into Gaza. But they also extend far south into Somalia, where Somalian fighters were fighting alongside Hezbollah in the 2006 war, and of course into Egypt, where Egyptian authorities have talked about Iranian influence among certain agents also crawling around Egypt. So we see clearly that it's not just Israel that is under attack, but in fact Iran's drive for regional supremacy is actually subverting, by its mandate, every country in the region. And this is a very important point, I think. This is something the Jerusalem Center has just come out with. This is a major policy book that was released last week called Iran's Race for Regional Supremacy, Strategic Implications for the Middle East. You can see it online at jcpa.org, where you can order a hard copy. I highly recommend it. It was written by the best intelligence and military authorities in the State of Israel, including former Chief of Staff Yalon, including former head of IDF intelligence Farkash, including the founder of the Arrow anti-missile system, Uzi Rubin, including some very important intelligence piece on Hamas written by one of the best former intelligence officers in the IDF on the Palestinians, Lieutenant Colonel Yonatan Doa Halevi. And you will find in this book a very comprehensive overview of Iran's race for regional supremacy and its threat to Israel and the West, as well as to the rest of the Middle East through Iranian subversion via proxies, allies, and surrogates. This is the threat that Iran has created, not only for Israel but for the whole region. And the message should be that Iran has declared war on Israel an awfully long time ago and is advancing that war against Israel on the ground today and for a number of years. It's an important message. It's a message that must be conveyed today, because the issue is not the Iranian nuclear program as the Iranian threat, but in fact the Iranian threat as reflected through its terror proxies and surrogates and allies on the ground, as I've shown you in this regional map. So with that, I wish you well, and Israel should be strong and continue to defend its interests and its rights.